My name is Erin McKenzie, and I did my presentation on the Chapel Hill academic fraud scandal. This scandal essentially revolves around three key players: Deborah Crowder, Dr. Julius Nagaro, and Mary Willingham. Deborah Crowder is the one who created the paper classes. Deborah Crowder was hired in 1979 by the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Her initial position was working in the African and Afro-American Studies curriculum, serving as a non-faculty member. Crowder held a soft spot for students who struggled academically and wanted to find a way to help these students. Dr. Julius Nagaro provided an outlet for Crowder when he became the chair of the curriculum in 1992. Nagaro's laid-back approach allowed Crowder to take over the department and create paper classes. These paper classes entailed no class attendance, no interaction or guidance from a faculty member, and a 20-page paper due at the end of the semester. Dr. Nagaro essentially allowed and facilitated these paper classes to continue for as long as they did, and was indicted by a grand jury for obtaining property by false pretenses. These charges were, however, dropped due to his cooperation in the investigation. Earlier in the semester, we discussed whistleblowers. Mary Willingham was the whistleblower in this scandal. Willingham was a tutor for university athletes. She tried to confront this academic fraud from the inside, and when she saw no action, she decided she needed to go to an outside source. Previous athletes are now taking action against the university for not receiving the education they were promised. For instance, former basketball player Rashonda McCants is alleging she received an inferior education due to being steered towards easier classes in order to keep her eligibility up. Academic integrity in college athletes has been a point of debate for many years. 2 points of interest are the athletes' initial academic eligibility and also criticisms that college athletes aren't getting the education they were promised. NCAA President Mark Emmert, 2 former college football players, author and historian Taylor Branch, and other witnesses testified on college athletes and academics. The hearing was held in response to criticisms that some college athletes were not getting the education that would lead to a career outside of professional sports, and that the college athletic department were unfairly exploiting athletes. In this press conference held by C-SPAN, they asked the hard questions such as, will education ever be considered a priority for the NCAA, and that college athletes have nothing to show after generating millions of dollars for the NCAA. This was a 2.5-hour press conference held in April 2014. In 2006, several NCAA institution presidents questioned the legitimacy of the high school credentials of the student athletes. The legitimacy concern was raised due to credentials from non-traditional courses in schools. Factors considered for initial eligibility by the NCAA are graduation, SAT and ACT scores, as well as the core course curriculum and grade point average. A discovery found in a national working group of academic and athletic experts was that academic fraud is not limited to college athletes, but is trickling down to secondary school as well. This group required the NCAA to tighten eligibility rules in order for college athletes to reach academic success. McCants has filed the class action for injunction relief and damages, alleging the NCAA and UNC failed to safeguard and provide a meaningful education to scholarship athletes. This lawsuit accuses the NCAA of negligence. Although the NCAA's rules prohibit academic fraud, the NCAA knew of dozens of instances of academic fraud in its member schools' athletic programs over the last century, and it nevertheless refused to implement adequate monitoring systems to detect and prevent these occurrences at its member institutions. This is just some of the allegations being brought up against UNC and the NCAA in this court case. I chose the issue of academic fraud in collegiate athletes because obviously this is an issue at hand within the Chapel Hill scandal. The NCAA is also currently investigating 20 other universities for academic fraud in light of this scandal. The NCAA has been facing some serious questions from every angle. The NCAA has proposed a new plan for the enforcement of their rules. However, the issue at hand, in which it pertains to academic fraud, is the investigation procedures in place for the increasing number of infraction cases that have surfaced recently. There have been multiple propositions to change the system of the NCAA in terms of education requirements so these student athletes can receive the education they deserve. While investigating academic fraud in collegiate athletes, a loophole was discovered in the University of Miami Business Law Review, which examined the NCAA's investigations over the past 40 years. Some conclusions this article provided is the NCAA has changed their enforcement model for their standard in order to restore the public's trust in college sports and the NCAA. However, the way they have been conducting their investigations of infraction cases has been questionable. There have been multiple repercussions to these issues, such as lawsuits filed against the NCAA, state and federal governments have attempted to regulate the NCAA, and the NCAA Accountability Act. This act amends Title IV of the Higher Education Act of 1965 to require schools that have an intercollegiate athletic program and are participating in Title IV programs to abstain from membership in a nonprofit athletic association. There were several different solutions to the academic fraud issue for student athletes, but the most effective one I came across was proposed by Tennessee Law Review, Inc. They suggested that student athletes should be part-time students for 4 years and allow them 2 years without intercollegiate athletics in which to complete their degree. Different factors of this include 6-year scholarships and limiting sports to only 1 semester. I truly believe this would be beneficial to student athletes and challenges the NCAA's seriousness about helping student athletes reach the education they deserve. It is clear that the NCAA is operating without the intention of student athletes in mind, but rather revenue in mind. It will take previous athletes such as McKenzie to give other student athletes the courage to stand up for their own education. The NCAA should genuinely consider alternative ways, such as the plan provided by Tennessee Law Review Association, to educate these students.